Yeah.
It's a little different.
Yeah.
But it is still a moment.
Well, it is, and Ryan and Ashley had a dream to bring an NHL team here. So, what better way to usher in that era with them making the pick? At the Spear, it's one of the greatest places I've ever seen to hold a draft. So it was an amazing place, amazing first day for us. We had targeted some guys, and we had good fortune, and they were there. And I think first rounder, we attacked the draft. We've got assets, and when you see guys that you're not like but you love, if you can get to them, you got to try.
What'd you love about him?
Well, to me, it's just his work ethic might change the culture of our organization. Just how hard he plays the game. And Tij, our first pick, he's an unbelievable kid. He's just a hockey player inside and out. And I told him when we met with him, I said, we got a lot of 20-goal scorers on our roster. I said, we're looking for a 50-goal scorer, no pressure. But we really loved him as not only a person, but as a player. He has everything that we like. He kind of excelled all the way through and got better at the end. He was great with Team Canada. He came into the combine, not only interviewed well, but tested well. We got a chance to meet the family today. We fell in love with not only the person, but also the hockey player.
Bill, character is a word that gets thrown around a lot, but when you're talking about the Iginlas, it probably speaks for itself. There are a few families around the NHL that really...
Yeah, we're gonna have Donor and him dressed together beside each other. So two great hockey families with a lot of character. So it's a special day for us. We really like our picks, and they jumped out to us, and we were able to get them. And it's when you're standing up there with the Utah colors, it's a proud day for the organization.
One of the things Ryan said was you've done a lot of work.
Yeah.
Now, there was a question I asked him about diving into free agency.
Yeah.
With cap space and
Yeah.
ability to spend. How do you handle this now? Is the rebuild still under the timelines that you want to follow, or does it accelerate or change?
It doesn't really accelerate. I've been asked that a lot. We have to be realistic. We have young players, the Mosers, Gunthers and Coolies and of the worlds, and even Michellis. It takes time. If we go and we fast forward the championship, the Stanley Cup, most of those players that were superstars in that series, they're 10 years in. We're talking about Cooley and Gunther 1.5 years in. It's hard to predict that we're gonna make the playoffs with such a young team. It's almost setting yourself up for failure. How we want to approach the year is looking at it this way. We achieved so many points last year. We need to take a step from there, but not a giant step. It's just a progression. I went through the rebuild for 14 years in St. Louis, and we won a championship at the end. And it takes a while. If you look at the numbers, go through them when guys peak, it's hard to say that Logan Cooley is going to lead us to the Stanley Cup next year. So I think it's something that we have to tailor our expectations for the team and understand that I do believe that we probably have some of the most talented prospects in the NHL coming in masses. So it's an exciting time for the organization, but I don't want to get ahead of ourselves by adding a few free agents to the mix.
Bill, you talked about the unpredictability of these first few picks.
Yeah.
This draft was billed as one that had a bunch of defensemen at the top, and yet we saw 5 forwards in the top 6 slots.
Yeah, it was an interesting draft. We all sat around. If you think about our draft room, you've got Larry Plow that was, head of scouting for New York, Ryan and Daryl and Alan Heppel, and we were perplexed by trying to understand what was going after one. There was the Russian factor that was thrown in there, the defenseman factor, and there was a lot of different elements that came to play. We tried to attack it by saying, what's our best case? What's our worst case scenario? Are we okay with that? And we were, and we got our best case.
Did it surprise you that those defensemen all sort of slid down a little bit, other than should be?
I don't know. I don't know if it's. It was hard to predict the draft, and I think everybody really struggled with it. So the good news is that when your scouting staff comes to you and says these are the guys you want, and we were able to walk out with our number one guy. So that was a huge step for us.
How long did it
It does. I think there's difference between the amount of players we have on a team and how long it takes to. But it's great the fact that they have an understanding of being in sports and the rebuild. They're not coming in thinking, hey, we're buying a team that's going to compete for the Stanley Cup this year, because that's when expectations get out of whack. If we have patience with our prospects and the process, we're going to have a chance. We just have to be patient with it, and I've been through it before, and I preach it to everybody, not only the fans, but the coaching staff and everybody involved in the organization. Our fans are going to get excited about what they see. You know, it's going to take some time, but you're going to see the young talent.
Bill, what about making a splash with? I mean, you get a name, Tij.
Yeah.
And the important, I mean, he's a very good player.
Yeah.
But you also get the name that comes with him and the pedigree.
Yeah, that's a good question. We had it with obviously Doan. I think there's a certain attraction to the name, but when you get to know them, and we take our time in getting to know them all year long by interviewing them, going to the combine, we meet their parents, we bring them in, and then by the end, it's not the name. You fall in love with the player and his talent level, and you forget about the name, and that's crucial for us. The name you can celebrate on draft day, but he's got to have talent and he's got to have passion. He's got to want to bleed for Utah, and we believe he has that, and he'll stand on his own. And I think he's going to make his own name in Utah.
And the fact that you're introducing hockey to Utah, people know about hockey, but you have a name.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the added bonus, perhaps.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. It's an added bonus, and he's an amazing kid. And I think when you get to know him and watch his talent level, and he's a shooter. He's a shooter, make no mistake. But he's got a special aspect about it, and he's also just an unbelievable kid that loves hockey, and that's the type of kid we want to draft to Utah. He's got a ways to go, but what you see there in the rawness, he's got some room to grow, a lot of room to grow.
When did you know?
As a player, how's he similar to his dad, and how's he different?
Well, I think he's similar to his dad because he looks exactly like his dad, but he's his own player to some degree. He's a shooter that can make a play. He's a pretty exciting player. I think when he relaxed, once he knew he was going to get drafted, I think he just kind of relaxed, and then you could start to see his playmaking skills come out, and that's what we love about him, is that he sees the right play in front of him. I think at the start of the year, he came out of a year before where just okay as an underage, and then when he went into his draft year, you could see him push the pedal. It was almost like forcing. Once he stepped back and relaxed, you could just see that, and playing off his natural instincts, he was impressive.
Bill, when did you know he was your guy?
Yeah. Well, I think you never know, but I think we will set our kids up for failure if we put them at such a place where they can't really grow. I think there's a patience, again, as we talked about it, and they'll form their own path there. And he's in a great spot in Kelowna. I think Team Canada will take a look at him in the summer. We'll put him in some situations to go to rookie camp. We'll see where he stands. But I think the value, one of the things that we have that not a lot of teams have, is that we've got a lot of prospects. Now we're at the point where our team's pretty good in the NHL, so there might not be as crazy as opportunity that Moser walked into or Gunther walked into. There is opportunity, but at the same time, we can let that happen naturally now and not put them in a bad situation. Craig's used to only having one reporter in Arizona, so he just thinks he could go. That's that.
When did you know what was the point?
When we hit pick 5, that's when we knew. That's when we knew he was going to be a Utah Yeti, I think.
Did you know at some point in the scouting process that, okay, this is the guy that we...
I mean, his play with Team Canada overseas, his testing at the combine, meeting him, spending time with him, and his body of work, yeah, it put him in that space. Yeah. What? I'm not allowed to pick the name, but I think the little kids in Utah vote about 25 times a day, so I think they got it.
Bill's thinking of Utah. How's it been knowing Utah? How's the whole community been?
Oh, it's unbelievable. It's overwhelming when we went in there with emotion, just the amount of excitement that they had to kind of, knowing that an NHL team's coming to their community. It was amazing. I'll tell you a funny story. I was in an Uber ride and I was in the back seat. People waving to me. I'm like, because we didn't really get that in Arizona. Walking down the street, people honking and waving to you, and it's kind of a great thing for us. We love that attention, and the simple fact that people are recognizing us and they've got enthusiasm for us is an amazing thing. Cole, one of the things, Daryl and Ryan can get into it, I don't want to steal all the thunder here, but his work ethic and how he plays the game, I do believe that he is going to be a huge piece of our culture on how he attacks every moment of the game with work ethic. And he is an impressive kid. He's built like a Utah player should be built, I think, in some regards. He is a big kid that works and doesn't give an inch away on that ice. Yeah.
You also mentioned you have lots of good prospects in the system. Who are you looking for to make a jump and maybe try and make a team this year?
Those guys that are going to come into camp with like Lamoureux and Geekies of the world, and Maticas, they're going to push. We'll see how they do, and now these young men will join them, and it's going to be a great competition at camp. And these guys will start right when they go into development camp, right to rookie camp, and we'll proceed from there. But there's going to be a lot of good young players coming to camp and pushing. Yeah, I think it's a unique situation. I've always felt this from my background, is that, the NHL, you can't get trades done, you can't get money. There's a lot of things you can't do. When you have draft picks, nobody can stop you if you pick the right people. Nobody can stop you. And that's the greatest thing about coming here, is that we control our own destiny by who we pick. And when you have those amount of picks, you got options, and you can see how we use those picks to move up and attack the draft, and that's a huge thing for us. We've been doing it since we drafted Geeky, since we did Lamoureux. We've been aggressive in those situations, and I love who we've picked, and they're going to be a big part of our team moving forward.
Are you open to free agent acquisitions if the price is right?
Well, if I was probably smart as a GM, I'd take my phone and throw it against the wall and pick it up on the second, not the first, where the prices are right. So if I just step on my phone, I'm going to be way smarter. That's a good question. Listen, we've always tried to complement the guys that we have in there, and if we can do that the right way, and it makes sense for a player, 6 to 7 years in term, I get it. But if we're just doing that to satisfy everybody on free agent day, and everybody can run around and go, oh, they got this guy, it doesn't help us. We have to grow our team organically. We have to grow it naturally, and we have to have some patience. And if we can put some free agents around, and I'll give you examples like we did it last year with Bukesteds and the Kerfoots of the world, and bring those type of guys in to help our group grow. It's going to be huge. So you just come over in my house and break my phone. We're going to be much smarter.
But we can talk on the second.
Yeah, the second would be great. I'll get my new phone by then.
Thanks, Bill.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.